Okay, I guess we'll get started. I don't know, is parking bad out there? I don't even know. I think with the seniors gone, it would be nice, but now the sophomores are all coming in. I'm not sure. Yes, not getting tickets now, right? Save a little money in the ticket round. Oh my goodness. Well, welcome everyone to our program this year. Let's start with introductions. I'm Cindy Rivera. I'm the chair of the school counseling department. And then we have Sarah Drexel, Ann Vernon, Nick Willett, Lori Keene, Lindsay Ryle, Erica Shadler, and last but not least, Dan Farina. This is the first test every time whether I can remember everyone's name. And so they're really happy that I just did that. So today we're here to talk with you about plans for your children as they move to the last half of their high school career. And you can kind of see they're changing rapidly, and things are going to be changing for them rapidly as we move into junior year. I'm hoping that you're seeing that they're becoming more independent and self-sufficient. They certainly probably rolling their eyes at you, that they know something that you're reminding them of for the 10th time. So that's a good thing. That's what we want, that they've got this. They may not be ready for all of this right now, but this is why we want to talk to you about it, so we start this partnership with you, because it's time to start to understand the steps that you need to be prepared for what you're doing after high school. We've told them this, and they are sort of shocked by it, but we figure if we get us all together on this page, we'll really get talking about it. So today you'll hear about the steps that we've taken and will take in partnering with you and your children over the next year. Here begins. So attending college is our focus today, but there are other pathways. And if your child's not academically focused just yet, or the cost of a four-year degree is prohibitive, it may make sense to think about other options. We do have students who consider any number of these other programs, and we're glad to talk about them with you and your child. We're seeing more and more kids take a gap year. Some students every year take a post-grad year. A lot of kids think about the military academies, which also begins the process in junior year. And we're seeing more and more students look at vocation technical schools that may be a better option for them. So we are introducing those pathways to students as well, but generally over 90% of our kids go on to four-year colleges, so we tend to really focus this program on the steps there. Whatever they ultimately do, the process next year is still pretty much the same at the research phase for everything. Many have not made any decisions about what they're doing just yet, which directions they're headed. So we walk them through this phase, research phase, and we can decide later what's the best option for them. Who's been through this before? Some. Okay, good. So you know better than most that the journey may be different. They may have different timelines, different paths that they're going on. Your students are probably all over the place in this process, and that's okay. Some have been coming in and talking to us since freshman year about their plans. They know what they want, they just need to know how to get there. Others are still deciding halfway through senior year whether they will even go to college. Perhaps they never thought college could be for them, and they need our encouragement to find their way. Whatever it is, right now it's still a little bit early, so we're just giving you a heads up kind of thing. Following my slide. Counselors have experienced it all. Collectively, we decided yesterday we probably have over 100 years of experience in this field. And then in the last 2 years, the changing landscape in college admissions, even the last 3 years, has certainly seen a lot of change with the pandemic. As you know, as you may know, with the pandemic, many schools stopped requiring the SAT and the ACT as part of the admissions, and that's still true for most schools. As we review decisions for our current senior class this year and talk to college rep, we continue to see shifts in admission. We've seen that some of our most popular schools that students apply to have become more competitive as applications have risen drastically nationally. With more applications to look at and fewer students submitting standardized testing scores, admissions reps report looking more at how a student will fit on their campus, looking beyond grades and scores to see how much the student appears to know about a school, how interested they really are to attend their school, and whether you can visit or not. It's important for your child to fully research every school they end up applying. We'll talk more about this. What hasn't changed? Students change their minds, and they change their minds often. Their dream school right now may never even make their list in the final round. Their best friend loves a school, and then they go and go, it's not for them. They may find a new interest or a new course they love in high school, and that'll change their whole trajectory. They may go to a college and hear about a major they never thought of before and totally change, again, what they're looking at. We get this. We're always on that path with them. As best you can, please try to double check all the advice you hear. And I'm making problems. As best you can, please try to double check all the advice you hear with well-meaning friends and relatives about this process. It can be overwhelming for you and even more so for your child to constantly hear about where are you applying, oh, you should try this school, or don't go to that school, it's a party school. Probably been a few years since you've been to college and things have changed quite a bit. And really don't listen to all of that out there. There's often so many different parts that you can be looking at. So enjoy the next couple of years as you watch your child grow and change. It may feel like a bit of a roller coaster at times, but it can also be wonderful to see your children start to identify where they want to go and what they want to do next. Broaden your perspective on what's considered a good college and help your child do the same. Be realistic about how the schools you're looking at, and using the tools that we are going to explain to you that you can use with your children to hear about this. We'll ask your child to be more thoughtful, and we have been doing that, and reflect on who they are and what it means for their future. This will be important when they write their essays and try to articulate colleges why they want to join their campus. Remember, we are partners in this and can be a great resource for you and your child. We work together as a team, consulting often with each other and with colleges. Sue Carroll in our College and Career Center also has a wealth of information. We always please have you follow her on Facebook, Twitter, read the many articles she shares, become familiar with our website where we house all of our recorded presentations and much more. So this morning, we will start with Sarah about what we've done this year. Nick will outline what junior year will look like and how to plan and organize college visits. And Anne will wrap it up with what you can do as a parent to support your children. And then we'll take questions.
Good morning. It is great to see everyone. I'm going to share a brief overview of what we have been working on with students through our program and what has been accomplished so far, so that you get an idea of where we've been before you learn about where we are headed. School counselors have been building relationships with your children by having both individual meetings and facilitating programs in their classrooms. As freshmen, we met with them early on to learn more about who they are and what goals they have for high school. This was a collaborative meeting where students completed an academic roadmap. Through this process, students gained an understanding of graduation requirements and a general awareness of their potential course of study over 4 years. While this plan is tentative, it was a great exercise for your students to set academic goals and learn more about our program of study and course offerings. Another aspect of our comprehensive program is helping students familiarize themselves with Naviance, which is a college and career readiness online program that helps students align their strengths and interests with their post-secondary goals. This is a useful resource introduced to students beginning freshman year. During their first year with us, all students complete a learning styles assessment. The Achieve Work Learning and Productivity tool shows students what their sensory, environmental, and mindset preferences are and how these relate to their learning and productivity. The full report includes recommendations for each preference area to help your students study better. This could include ways to adjust their study environment, change their thinking and approach to how they study, or come up with new ways to tap into their preferences to improve health. Perhaps it's a good tool to look back on as we head into finals. Please know that the full report is available in Naviance, and your child's counselor can reset this if students would like to retake the assessment at any point throughout high school. Our program with sophomores began with an exploration of career clusters and pathways so that students can start to build connections between their time at NCHS and their post-secondary opportunities. This year, we had sophomores take the Career Interest Profiler. The Career Interest Profiler was designed to align a person's interest to potential careers and is a research-based assessment using Holland's personality theory. The Holland Code is a 3-letter code that is made up of an individual's 3 dominant personality types out of 6 possible choices. The 6 types Dr. Holland identified are collectively referred to as RIASEC, and the initials stand for the first letter of each of the following personality types: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, and enterprise, and conventional. This code might just be the key to finding a compatible career. The general idea is that if students are self-aware of their strengths and interests, they may find a career that brings them fulfillment. Part of our discussion with sophomores was using their results from the Career Interest Profiler to help during the course selection process. It can also be used as a guide to help students consider various extracurricular activities and part-time work here. This year, students received a copy of the Connecticut Department of Labor's Connecticut Career Path. This is a guide to career strategies, job advice, education, training, wages, which amongst the students is a favorite to learn more about, and job descriptions. Please know that Naviance also highlights the 16 national career clusters as part of their careers resource database. And just to show you a glimpse of how we connected the activity to this resource, and a special thanks to Mr. Farina, who I think secured 300 copies for us in the back of his Subaru. Thank you. So students have this. I hope some of you have seen it. It's an excellent resource. And just to highlight some of the features, it shows students education and training routes for the various careers. It also gives them an idea of what's a hot job, meaning what's in, over the next 10 years, what is going to be, where will there be openings. And then also under interest, every job shows students preferences for work environment, which is the Holland Code, which they did or received after doing the Career Interest Profiler. So this was an excellent resource. It was like a party favor that we gave out after. So hopefully it's sitting somewhere at home. Okay. The career exploration lesson was a nice segue into the second classroom program where we completed an advanced college search. Let's take a look now at Naviance and how students can use this resource. Okay. So this is the homepage of Naviance that students see when they log in. We've spent some time with the self-discovery tab and the careers tab. We are now on the colleges tab, which if you look at Find Your Fit, there's various research opportunities for students. We completed the advanced college search with them, which gave students an opportunity to start to think about different criteria. It helps them think about size and location. Please know that we are trying to emphasize fit. Taking the time to self-reflect now will make the process smoother. Students need to know who they are as learners to know what academic setting is right for them. So spending time really reflecting on that now will help the process. students completed the advanced college search to begin to identify colleges of interest. That was a part of the lesson plan. Part of what's great about Naviance is that it serves as a tool to track research and exploration. For example, students are able to select the heart icon, which right now we're on Bucknell. I'm gonna move okay, you can see the heart right there. They are able to like or select the heart icon feature as a way to save this school under colleges that they're thinking about. One student actually compared it to Instagram, where you like photos and all of that. So it was a funny connection. That's actually, pretty on target. If you like the school, you select the heart, and it will appear on the college's thinking about list for that student. We have access to it, so we're able to see colleges that they're thinking about, and eventually we add to that list as well. Okay, so this slide is a look at the college overview page where there's a link to the college website, virtual tour, college overlaps, admissions data, and general college information. As you can see, this student has liked Bucknell. The students really enjoyed using this program and started to see all the opportunities that are available to them. I'm now going to turn it over to Nick Willett, who will be discussing what is coming up junior year.
Right, thanks, Sarah. So it's never good when your Apple Watch tells you have a high heart rate. So I look calm, but it's telling me otherwise here. So, so let's take a Zen moment here. So I think you heard earlier Mrs. Rivera talk a little bit about that this is a partnership. And I think for me, what's important for you to know, and I think for all of us to let you know, is that you're not in this alone. Right? So if there's anything that you leave with today, just know that you have wonderful counselors up here who are going to help you through this process. And we're throwing out a lot of information to you today. I'm sure you have lots of questions, but just know that it is a process that's going to help you get there. Okay? So the first piece is that in the fall, when your students come back as juniors, they're going to be taking the PSAT. All right, and this is actually the new digital format of the PS. So when you came in, if you happen to get one of the flyers, or if you didn't, when you're leaving, grab one of those because it will explain kind of the new digital format. It is free. We encourage all kids to actually take this test. And they will be taking this test on their own digital devices starting next year. So the PSAT, though, is just a preliminary test, okay? That's all it is. It's to give the students, to give your children a baseline of where they are with their testing, okay? Remember, when they take the PSAT, they probably maybe know 40, 50% of what's on there. Some may know more, but it really is just to kind of give them a baseline. Then what's going to happen is when they get those test results back in December or in December of next year, then they're going to be able to look at that, see where their strengths are and their weaknesses, and then come up with a plan and they go. Then in October, we're actually going to have a financial aid night. And so I think what's great about the financial aid night is really going to walk you through kind of the ins and outs at the college level of what financial aid is all about. And I know there's always a lot of questions regarding. So if you're not able to attend that, just remember that we do actually videotape those presentations. We put them on our counseling website, so you can go back and just maybe sometimes watch them over and over. I know a couple of times we've had some financial aid presenters that, financial aid's going to put, okay? However, it is good information, and you may not know if you qualify or when to fill out the FAFSA, and that's going to really walk you through that process very nice. So in December, we're going to meet with all of our juniors in small groups. So that's kind of the kickoff where counselors meet one-to-one in the classroom with the juniors. And I really feel like that's a great opportunity for us to reassure your children that they will get through this, because remember, they're hearing all sorts of things out here in the hallways. They're hearing from their friends, from whoever they're connected to, and their anxiety levels are starting to build at that time. So it's really a nice time for us to go in there and say, guess what? This is going to be okay. However, we've got a lot of work to do, right? And if we do everything correctly, then your stress levels will go down, but there will be some bumps along the road. So I just actually enjoy those go in. But we're not just in there talking about that. We're also going to talk about the PSAT results and kind of give them information of how to kind of go through all of that information that they've received and maybe start together and help them also. Some of you have had kids already go through this to help them really connect their PSAT results with Khan Academy and whatever. So it's just more of an informational for them. Then in January, we will go to the junior parent night, and that's actually with all of you. So that's actually a time where, we sit in these bigger meetings and, they're not as intimate, right? They're just a little bit more like, maybe I don't want to ask a question. Those are going to be the times when you sit with your counselor and we really go over the whole process of college, right? We talk to you about developing timelines for your testing. We talk about building initial lists of colleges, but we really take you from the beginning to the end. And that's going to be a time as a family that you can come in and really ask us about. They all give me a hard time because I generally stay probably the longest of everybody. But we all enjoy that night though, because it's really a sit down with you to really discuss what are you thinking? And so I really enjoy. Now also keep in mind that these these times are tailored to you as a so what's going to happen is we tailor our meeting. So we have the meeting with you, and then what we'll do after that meeting is we'll actually schedule meetings with you, sit down with you, so with your children, self, whoever your counselor may be, and that's a time where we'll really get into your goals. You'll all get a letter in the mail about the date and time of your junior meeting. So we still kind of use snail mail or emails to let you know. It is important. So remember, we're scheduling many of those meetings. So if there is a conflict, let us know early so we can accommodate. And I think we all up here accommodate everybody. We realize you're busy. So if there is a conflict, don't ever hesitate to reach out and we can help. Right. So in terms, we put this nice little cartoon up there for you. Might enjoy a little humor this morning. When the pandemic hit, most schools did go test optional, as you all are probably aware at this point. And most of them have remained test optional and will remain. Which means if the scores are not reflective of your child's abilities, then you simply don't have to submit those scores. I mean, that's really a gift to all your, whether or not they have. And I know that's always, for my families, is always a big question. Well, should we? Right? What's the right thing to do? But that's why you have once you have a list built, right, then we kind of walk you through that and say, yeah, we do think, based on the statistics we know, we do think. Keep in mind if those scores are high enough or meet the averages of what the school's looking for, there's no reason not to strengthen the application. But remember, you're also given the opportunity where if you don't meet those averages, what the college is looking for, then don't send them and it's not going to hurt. And I'm sure there'll be some questions a little bit later. How many of you attended the Summit Educational Zoom that we had? Okay, so pretty good amount. Okay, so that was a great program that we Summit Education for all of you, and it really walked you through the whole process, SAT versus ACT. So if you didn't attend, that is actually present up. So I would highly encourage you to go and But even if, even with test optional, it's always important to make sure that you do have a testing for going into next year and during next year. So remember, this is what I hear most of the time. Everybody is so, should I be taking, should I not? Well, yes, they will be taking the SAT. Remember, try not to stress out. And I know that's easy for me to say. I have an elementary kid and a baby, so I'm not there yet, but you guys are good testing ground for me, so I can give the good information. So as discussed earlier, juniors also will be taking the new digital format here at our school. Most of you probably are aware of that. That's a state test, and so they'll end up. We do recommend that kids take the SAT or ACT, right? And that's individualized at least 2 times. Some will take it 3 times. There's no right answer to any of that. They will take the SAT here, those scores, and just to remind you, the PSAT scores, you own those scores. Those go to no colleges when you take this, okay? So I think that's always kind of a concern out. Where do they go? So when they take the state test, state takes your scores and they drop them into the College Board account, and then you get to decide where you actually want to send them. So for the SATs, the first round is usually in March or April, and then most students will take another SAT or ACT generally in May or June. That's usually the take that. They'll see where they are with their first one. If they're happy, great, then they'll end it. If they're not, then they'll end up taking the second one, and again, they'll see at the end of that one whether they did well or they'd rather. And then usually what will happen is some of my students will take fall, and usually it's in October, and those scores will generally always get to a college, in November 15th. Yeah. All right, so I think my message to you is, as a parent, it's really just important to make sure that you help balance your child through that process, because it's not an easy process. And sometimes families, students, more than anything, they get too involved with this whole process. And I think what's important to remember is that schools, again, are test optional, but really what's most important is the academic, right? I mean, that's really what kids should be focused on. That's what the colleges are going to be looking at most. So I think what happens is we get too involved with the testing and we forget that the academic. So just really kind of give that message to your kids that, yes, if testing's right for you, great, we'll go down that. But remember, the focus really is making sure that next year as a junior, you're doing the best in your class. And I think the other part to that is they've all gone through scheduling with their counselors, and we're pretty much done with all of that. But I think it's important to look at their schedules with them and make sure that they do have a balanced list of classes. Do we want a student taking 6 AP classes as a junior? Well, if that's right for them, great, they can go and do that. But if it's not, it's going to cause a lot of stress throughout the year, and for us here and for you at home. All right. So now I'd actually like to move on to the fun stuff. Okay, so it's really a fun time in your lives. Okay, I mean, some of you have already been through this, but some of you have not been through this. And going into your junior year, a great thing to do this summer is actually go and visit colleges. How many of you probably have already visited? Okay, and some have not. And guess what? That's okay, right? You don't want to stress, your kids out. But this summer, if you're on vacation and you're out, say, I don't know, California, I'm just going to warm, then you might look at what's around the area that you've gone to visit. Are you around Santa Clara? Well, just stop by. And it doesn't have to be a school that your child is even interested in. We really just want them to start to understand, are they interested in a smaller school, a larger school, urban, suburban? I mean, do they want to be 6 hours, away from where you live here in Connecticut? So I think it's really important to really start that process summer. And again, they're not going to exactly know where they want to go or the areas of the United States maybe or others that they are interested in, but at least it gives. I tell a lot of my families this summer, why don't you go and visit some of the schools that are local? I mean, drive up to Yukon and stores, and that's going to give them an idea of a college that's 40,000 above, right, of a bigger school. Then they can actually go over to Fairfield or Quinnipiac, which is a little bit, they're private schools, but more of a medium-sized school, and that'll give them an idea of what a medium-sized school is like. Or to go up to a more urban area, which, up in Northeastern, or some colleges up in Boston to give it a little bit of an idea. And that really gives them the feel, because remember, they have an idea of a school, but what happens with my students is they have an idea, but it so changes once they go and they start touring these colleges, because they either don't see themselves there, and I'm sure you've had those experiences too as parents, where it's not what you expect. That's why it's important. The other piece is when you actually this summer go and during next year as a junior, when you go and look at those different, I usually give out a form, and I usually give those out in junior parent meetings with the families of, jotting down what you see, because what's going to happen is all those colleges are going to blend together. You're not going to remember where you visited, and so I give a guided form to kind of help them when they're on campus, think about some different things as they're seeing campus, and to write down what the college's name is, so when they come back, they can do some comparisons of all of it. But also have them sign up, right? So have them go on a tour, and some maybe, again, ready, and some not. If they're not ready, then basically, maybe just do a drive, real quick. Or if it's only one or two, and then all of a sudden, with my 11-year-old, all I hear right now is, Dad, you're stressing me out. Sure, you hear the same thing. Then maybe it's just one school that they go and look. So I think you really have to think about where they are with this process, and everybody's going to be at different places, okay? I know, even in my own life, sometimes we hear friends doing this, and all of a sudden I stress out. Oh my God, I have to sign up for soccer too, right? And it's not even 6 months later. So just keep that in mind as you go through that. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. We will all get there. And then I'm just going to end it with basically saying again that you're not in this alone. There'll be a lot of reminders next year, a lot of meetings next year on all of those concerns or things that you don't also understand. But I think the one thing we pride ourselves here is that we all have an open door. We all encourage you to make those phone calls to us. Sometimes I hear from my students, I don't want to bother you, Mr. Willett, and I say, oh my gosh, why are you bothering me? This is the best part of my job, is helping you with your goals and getting into the college of your. All right, so I'm going to actually, though, pass it over to Ann Vernon, who's going to talk a little bit about the parent role and how to.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning. Are you all ready, do you think? The years raising your child have gone by so fast, I know. As a parent of a student researching and applying to college, it's a really good idea to start with some introspection and acknowledge your own anxiety about your child growing up and leaving home. It's really important in this process to encourage your child to be independent or encourage his independence and to let them take the driver's seat. And then you need to take the back seat and be there for support and help as needed. We've all, basically, we all have seen parents who try to do too much for their children in this process. They want to help because they know how busy their kids are, and to put this on top of how they're already, all the things they're already doing. Seems like they have too much on their plate. Sometimes a well-meaning parent will try to do some of the work for the child. But what happens is the to-do list and roles and responsibilities get mixed up between parent and child. And this leads to confusion and errors, especially in the senior year. Instead, begin the process by letting your child be the driver. Encourage them to make their own appointments, phone calls, and emails, and let them know that you're there to help with specific tasks. You know, in the same way that students access counselors, teachers, and admissions representatives, you can be a support for them to go to. It might be setting up a spreadsheet, a shared electronic to-do list, and being the one to make airline and hotel reservations for your visits. When you trust your child to manage this process and take responsibility for it, they can then own the success in the end, when they will be accepted, as every student that I've ever worked with has been accepted to college. And then they can own that themselves. All the information they need, as we've said today, is in the school counseling office. And we work together, as we have said. Counselors have a comprehensive program to address their needs step by step. And together, as Cindy said, we have over 100 years of experience, and we share everything that we know. And what we also have is just the knowledge of college admissions and colleges, as well as the knowledge of what your students experience here at New Canaan High School. Some other thoughts that have worked in the past. Designate one day or time per week to have a college process check-in with your child. In our house, it was always Sunday at noontime, and this helps avoid the tendency to have college be the ongoing discussion to the exclusion of everything else. Second, prepare your child for disappointment. Expect them to be deferred, waitlisted, or denied from some of the schools on their list. There's a random aspect to this process, and your child should never take these results as a reflection of their worth. These disappointments are part of the process. 3, before junior year, perhaps when planning a college visit, talk to your child about your family priorities, whether this is distance from home, costs, and financial considerations. And then by setting these expectations up early, these become the ground rules for your family. And finally, a little advice from the Middlebury College admissions staff. During a college visit, they say, never ever buy that souvenir sweatshirt or t-shirt from the bookstore in your size. It's a dead giveaway. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. I can see you all rolling your eyes. Yeah, I'm going to let my kid run this. You can't see them doing it. They do get there. It's amazing how they take charge of things if you allow them to do it at their pace. Questions? Thing that's come up in this whole conversation. We threw a lot of information out to you.
Submission of scores is optional. Does that mean you have to submit both scores, or can you submit math if you do really well and then not
Yeah.
submit verbal if you didn't do that well?
No, if you're sending scores, you're sending both reading and math. But part of score choice, another term, is that you can send the reading from one sitting and the math from another sitting. So that's what's called super scoring. And even also with the ACT, most colleges now are super scoring those between different categories to create a score between sittings. And there are still some colleges that do require scores, and some are going back to it more now. So it's just something we have to keep attention to, and you'll hear it as you're starting to see colleges and research them, which ones are going back to having, requiring scores.
Figures go through the That's interesting.
Yes. You heard so much about it, right?
I had my son set up a SAT account with his email and the boards for the ACT and the SAT. He was kind of clueless, like he was supposed to do that because we just got an email about that. That hasn't been done yet? No.
No, that's only after you take the PSAT or the SAT or an AP class. So they would have created a College Board account at that point, right? Yeah.
Suggesting that we did that. And what has also been, have they looked at taking anything digital before they take the PSAT, or is it going to be like the first time?
Well, when we get there next year, there's going to be an awful lot of webinars and I think even in-class instruction on getting ready for that. So it's a much shorter test, which is nice. It will be during the school day. We did it with our juniors this year for the SAT during the state testing, and most of them found it much easier than the paper and bubbling in thing. Right?
And College Board is working on a simulation where students can actually log in and do a practice. They'll see the digital platform and they can play around with it.
Can they retake that personality test again? Because I imagine between when they took it in junior year, they may change.
Yes, we can always reset it. It's the Holland scale is based on, it's more skill-based, but yes, we can always have them reset it if they're interested in doing that. So I should be able to access it and show it to you too.
Presumably, I have an arrangement with certain universities where my kids can go stay for free. How do I meet with the counselor to craft, design a curriculum that really helps my child learn it? Because I have two of them in the sophomore year, so I want to take great advantage of that.
I'm not sure what your question is. Could
The
you
question
explain
is
that?
this, my kids can go for free to two colleges,
Yeah.
Columbia and Whitewood. So what do I do so I can sit with a counselor to design a curriculum and a path for them to be prepared to go to that school for free because I cannot afford it?
Sure. Well, one, congratulations. That's nice. Just saved $85,000. I think per year, right? Per year. The process will still be the same for you because they still have to apply and get in.
But that's what I want to know.
Yes, and that's
Can I
what.
sit with a counselor?
Yes, you will
Sit
have,
down.
that's what we're talking about. In junior year, that's the opportunity we provide. So, and every year we've been working with your children and building their schedule so they, are always challenged but not overwhelmed. So building towards the best that they can be. So if appropriate and if they are eligible, that's the same process that we do with all students. Right.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I had a student similar this year that I worked with. Father was a professor at college, and they had reciprocity in a sense to different colleges throughout the United States.
I am in the same position.
You're in the same
I
position?
have a professor here, so I have an arrangement with both. So.
Yeah, so, that's a great place to be, and, so the student can then talk with me, but that'll happen more in your family meeting where you'll discuss that and then try to figure out where that reciprocity is with whatever colleges are going to offer that to you.
What email should a student have to communicate with college? His New Canaan High School email, or he should create his own in communication with colleges?
Great question. Go ahead. Sure.
We would encourage students to create a personal separate email account that they're checking just as much as their NCPS email. But that way they can have that ownership over that account. The New Canaan email accounts do deactivate after graduation, so they can have the personal account to just keep track of everything there, everything college related. We would encourage students to create and make it like a formal email account. Don't call it like Skater Girl. And, you know. Might have been my email in high school.
And also, I clearly don't work for Google, but since our NCPS emails are Gmails, if they use a Google account, they can really easily manage both from their phones, which is what I know I do for my personal email. It just makes it really easy to keep track of everything, so.
Is there any talk of the ACT going digital as well, or is it just paper?
No, so far not. They're
Okay.
sticking with what they have, so that's another thing to consider in choosing these. And we will encourage kids if they want to try between ACT, don't know, or practice tests here or taking practice tests in both. You have the PSAT for the practice for SAT. And many of the organizations in town, we talk about Summit a lot, but they do offer free practice tests on Saturdays in time settings or extended time settings if you talk kids extended time to see how that feels and get a result. Oftentimes with the ACT, kids think they do better, but generally they're pretty comparable. It's where they feel comfortable.
Yes, so I wasn't sure I heard you clearly when you mentioned the digital SAT versus the traditional writing paper SAT. Did you say the writing is easier than digital?
No, it's not easier, it's different.
It's different.
Yeah, but the SAT is going to digital, you won't have any other option to choose. ACT is still writing, is still a paper and pencil exam.
I see. But you said, I think I missed that part. I heard you saying something is better.
I think what she's getting at was the current junior class took the in-school SAT in a digital format, and 100% of my students that I've chatted with said that they preferred it digitally versus the old paper and pencil. These kids are born and raised on the digital devices. It's second nature for them. For me, I would not want to take a digital test, but these kids are used to it and they found just a better format and they were able to maintain focus. They loved the little countdown of the clock that was right there on their desktop. So the SAT, yeah, they enjoyed it digitally. As much as one could enjoy it.
But they enjoyed it. What about the outcome, the result?
Our results were quite strong this year, so. Yeah.
Did you see a shift in the scores then from the written SAT to the digital compared to the ACT, the written ACT then? Did you see, because it's a totally different type of test.
Well, just to clarify, the test that they took on the computer is not the new digital SAT. They took the current SAT on the computer, it just wasn't the paper format. So the format of the new digital SAT is changing this fall.
So our kids will take that.
It's a new assessment, so they took it on the computer, so that, of course, that familiarity that students, shared as a positive will be there. However, it's a new assessment for the fall.
So that's why the practice, the PSAT in the fall is important to get that practice because again, it doesn't go anywhere. It gives you an idea. Kids are generally comfortable with that. And our top kids, the kids who always test well, will be eligible for a national merit status. We didn't talk about it here, but I just want to throw that out there. So if you do have that student who always tests well and doesn't seem to worry about those things, if they are in the top percentages in the state of kids who test, there is that national merit status, which is a little blip, extra award that they'll get for on the college test.
So picking up that, so when they are juniors, or rising juniors, take the PSAT in the fall, it will be the new digital format. So that, and then they will take it in the spring,
Correct.
And do we need to sign up individually, or you sign us if there's a dedicated day? Is it in March or April?
No, it's in October, the PSAT.
PSAT, but then in the spring?
And then in the spring is another designated day that we will sign them up for that, for the state test. After that, it's through College Board that you will be signing up for your children. So the state test is the first opportunity, and then after that, the SATs are on Saturdays, ACTs are on Saturdays, and you will have to register individually for those.
Do you know if that Connecticut state test that you'll sign up for our kids will take place in March or April, just for those who play spring sports?
It's usually always been in March, so it's like March 25th or something like that, around that time.
That's great.
So.
Do you encourage kids to make use of the virtual visits, or is that looked down upon by the schools?
No, we absolutely encourage them to take advantage of the virtual visits. I think the reality for everyone is you're not going to be able to get out and visit every single school or every type of school that your student is interested in. So in terms of just doing research and getting more familiar with the school, it's absolutely fine to start with those virtual offerings. And then once you have a more narrowed down, a more refined list, then you can start actually taking those college visits as well.
But I do think in the first round that we talked about this summer, to get on campus and really get a feel of just some local schools so the students can get a sense of what they're liking and not liking, that's important. That's when the virtual tours become more real to them. And since the pandemic, the colleges have really spiced up those tours, so they offer an awful lot of information there. You know, you can all see the quad and the food.
On average, how many schools are kids applying to?
Oh, it's gone up this year. I think we're around 8 at this point, which is an average, because if kids apply early and get into an early decision school, then they don't apply anywhere else. Kids who apply early and might be deferred in that early round, suddenly their list is huge. We do not recommend more than 12 to 15. Of course, no one listens to us, but that's our recommendation. We do have kids who really push the envelope with applications. The key is, and colleges recognize this when they've been, when there's a lot of applications, the applications aren't personalized. And the essays, they can see that there's been some cutting and pasting from the website into their essays, and they can feel when a kid is just applying to a lot of schools, and that's important to them. They get insulted, so we really encourage kids to research a lot and really be careful about where they're applying and know their schools, whether it's virtual or available. No college expects you to fly to California if that's not feasible for you for whatever reason. If you are looking at Quinnipiac down the road, they do expect that you would have visited, and if you hadn't, they'd be wondering. So it doesn't matter if the school is close by and you've never visited.
I also like to add that we also have college reps that visit us right here in New Canaan High School in the College and Career Center. They're more geared towards seniors in the fall, is when we get close to 200 college admissions reps come in. Even if your son and daughter saw the school on campus in person, we encourage them to attend as well, because the person who's giving those information sessions are usually going to give your son or daughter's application their first read, so it's just another way of expression of interest without even leaving the halls of New Canaan High.
I would actually add also that make sure that when you're coming up with a list or you're going to look at colleges, you want to have a nice, category of some saves, some targets, and some reaches. It's absolutely okay to go out and look at a reach school, but try to not concentrate so much on your reach schools, on visiting those schools. That might be better as a virtual tour, and then kind of concentrating more on those safe and targets. And you're probably wondering at this point, well, how do I actually know that? I mean, you'll get that through some of the statistical data of our scattergrams. Your kids will know that through the scattergrams, but your counselor will be working with you, kind of give you an idea of, where those categories lie, and then that's when you really want to concentrate on going to see some of those.
Yep.
Hi there. You mentioned a surge in applications this year. Obviously, we've got the pandemic. Is that idiosyncratic, or
do you have some insight into our rising juniors, what the trajectory might be, interest in college, is it a new broader trend, or is it kind of a once-off? And then secondly, with the engagement of colleges, like how significant is that for them to really be engaged with their college? You know, is that kind of a must-do, or highly recommend?
So the first question is about the trajectory of the rise in applications. For the schools that our kids apply to, there's been a significant rise. Common App just reported, Common App is a application for many schools, over a 20% rise in applications this year. That's significant. I think with things being score optional, more kids are applying because they don't have to get those awful scores and know they can't get into that school. and now and colleges have their own institutional needs. They're broadening what they're looking for. They want to get a more diverse population at their school. They want cultural diversity. They want a range of kids from all over the world. So they're meeting their own institutional needs. They also want to be more selective, which means they want more kids to apply so they can deny your kids. So they can say, see how selective we are. So which raises their ranking in the system. So it's a big business, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. So that's why we're continuing to ask kids to broaden their search. Over the years for the pandemic, the colleges that kids apply to has narrowed. They applied to all the same 10 schools. This was not true 10 years ago. Every kid really had a diverse range of schools. Now they're all applying Clemson, Syracuse, Providence, UConn. You know, we can tell you what they are on the top of our head. And that makes it more competitive for our kids. So we keep an eye on it. Our kids did great this year. So I don't want to take that away from you. Our kids found places. In the early round, we were worried because a lot of kids got deferred or sent to the second round. But in the end, it was amazing, our results. So we did a good job. So we've done well. What was your second question?
Just college engagement, how important and significant that is.
To some level, I wouldn't go overboard. You know, I think you want to make contact, you want to stay, and when the kids get to that point, it's more in senior year, they have their list of schools, who are they reaching out to? We send first quarter grades if that's important, semester grades if that's important. Our letters of recommend really talk about the child in context of school. So there's lots of points, teacher recommendations. So it's adding in when they can and reaching out when they can without it being stalking. So we help them with that as well.
Thank you.
And then just to add, in terms of demonstrated interest, right, which is what you're asking about, I think the bigger picture there is if a student is researching a college and really engaging with that campus, then they're going to be better able to demonstrate that that school is a good fit for them. And that's important to the colleges, especially through supplemental essays, things like that. It's very evident when students have done their research and engaged with the campus, and it's very evident when they haven't. So but that's just another thing to keep in mind.
Do you know about a percentage, or off the top of your heads, of kids that go into the college process with a decided major?
Well, that's, did you all hear that? How, the percentage of kids who go in with a decided major. Often, they change their mind. But, yes, this is what our programs do. We really actually want them, if it's not a decided major, a decided interest, area of interest, because that, you know, really helps colleges to see where you're going to fit on their campus. But kids do change their mind. Kids do go undecided. College, you'll hear colleges say it's still their biggest major is undecided, and they really help you with that once they're there. But we also really work with kids. You know, so many times, like when we were doing the program this year with them, many of you say you want to go into business. Well, what does that mean? There's the finance side, the marketing side, the consulting side, the international side. Let's move that along. All they know is, well, my father makes a lot of money and I want to do that. So it's like, okay, do you know what he does? No, not really. Maybe you should talk to him. So it's just that type of thing that we're trying to get them to be really more reflective about where their interests are and what they're going to do with that. Scott?
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, in a junior appointment, like we're asking kids like what their areas of interest are, or, what potential major they have. So I think Sarah mentioned that, we add to the school list as well. And so we're gonna look at programs and majors and areas of interest that, kind of align and put those schools on the list as well.
How do you differentiate between all the liberal arts schools? There's so many, and they seem to have changed since I went to school, so.
Yeah. The question is about liberal arts schools and how do you differentiate between them? I think it really goes to program again, because, some have emphasis on, they have a great program in dance, or they really emphasize their political science or their economics program. So I think it goes to that, and again, it comes to where students feel comfortable on a campus. It goes back to the same thing. Anything more you want to add? Sports plays into it. Just about everything that you can think of will be the same search as everything else.
Rigor, they range in rigor of, the most competitive to easier to get into. So that's part of getting out there and seeing schools and finding that fit.
And sometimes, like my search was, where will I not have to do a thesis at the end of the year and for my senior year? So there's a lot of different ways to look at it.
If you were considering applying to a D1 school for sports, is everyone on the panel qualified to know? I don't mean qualified, do you know what I mean? And if you have specific expertise in that, or you just, talk to your regular person?
Yeah, I think everybody is qualified. I mean, really, you're looking for fit too. So you're looking for that academic fit, that athletic fit. Now, your coach, whatever sport your child plays or whatever aspirations they have, like they should really speak to their coach and speak to them about what level that the coach sees them at. There are camps out there, there are recruiting services, which I don't really fully believe in, but it's a different story. So really speaking to your coach and kind of getting it out there. Now your students should fill out, every college, if you go to their athletic website, they pretty much have like prospective, recruits or recruiting page. And so you want to click out that prospective student athlete sheet, fill that out and send that in. They pretty much sign like a Google sheet and send those out to the colleges. We'll kind of connect with them. But really the point of contact would be the coach. That's who's going to get you recruited, and kind of be that point person to talk with different schools about that student's athletic ability.
And just to add, because it does go along with this, we, being new here, something that I really appreciate is we work so collaboratively. So, certainly we all have experience working with Division I athletes, and also we have found, or I have found that, going to colleagues to say, here's the situation, here's the student, what experience do you have, help, walk me through this. So we work very collaboratively and work together on supporting your children.
And what I do find too is oftentimes the athlete comes to the counselor with a preliminary list because of coaches they've heard from. And we take it from there with them. We are always going to look at an academic fit for them in case they get hurt or they change their mind or anything like that. But we're working the academic side. We're working with admissions. When the coach says, you've got a spot on the team, then we're going to admissions. It's like, does he have a spot on the team? To make sure that that connection has been made and work with kids from that end of it. But we all have worked with athletes.
And just one final question. How many roughly went to colleges this year, for example, through their sport? Just curious.
Look back on the slides.
Yeah, that's a good question.
7% had a hook of some kind, but that would include athletics, music, arts, kind of lump them together.
And that also, like, the high school sports versus, club sports, like, rowing and things of that nature too.
And I'll just add too, that's not just for sports, that's for other avenues too, like this year I had 2 military kids, that applied to different, West Point, whatever that is. We all have that experience up here, and it kind of depends year to year, because it's random of how the kids, get assigned to us. But, we get kids all the time, all of us, and, I think Sarah made a good point, that if there is something that, we're like, we have a question on, we all 8 work together to really figure out, okay, what did you do? Did you have a kid last year that went through this? And so that's what you're getting up here, is you're getting all of us, not just one of us, and that's a nice thing.
Similarly, if we have a fringe athlete who isn't a star athlete, but is a good competitive athlete, and potentially wants to play that sport in college, and we don't know how that's going to shake out, obviously, because it comes down to kind of the last year's, like, senior year might be her strongest year in that sport, and like, how do the colleges see that, and can you guys help facilitate finding schools? And I'll throw it out there, my daughter's a golfer. I mean, it's kind of random. It's not a broad sport. So who do we turn to for some experience in finding a school that might take her for golf? And trying to, because we don't know how to go about that.
Right, so those statistics will be on various schools' websites as to the scores that who are on their team. So you can, kids get the idea of where they're eligible faster than I can look at it, to play at a school. But we do have lots of tools and research opportunities that we help you look into those as well.
May I help with that, because I've been involved in this process? May I just add a thing? I'm a professor, so I was involved in a lot of this stuff. Here is the point. When the child fills the application, there is a particular section in the extracurricular activities. So what you do in there, you basically emphasize what your child does. And very often coaches, because when they recruit players, except for the sports that they are exceptional, and they are like, say, football or whatever lacrosse or whatever they do. The reality is that the coaches in soccer or golf, where there are 18 million players in the U.S., what they basically will say, what are your interests? You don't get a scholarship, because the average of the students that get the scholarship for sports is only 17% of the tuition. So what you do, coaches get from the admissions office, get that list, and then they basically choose players that they think are a fit for them, whatever the sport is. And this happens particularly through the Ivy League, from Harvard down, and that's what you usually have to be very careful of. So the moment that you send the application, your child is admitted to that school, the first thing you do, you know that the admissions office is going to send a letter there, and then you contact the coach. I'm sorry for including this.
Yeah, I think contacting the coach is the biggest thing there. So whether that coach is seeking you out because you're an excellent athlete, or whether you're going to that school for the academic side of it, and then you're going to maybe try to walk on, right? And so, but I think we've all had students who they sit in the chair in their junior appointment and they say, well, I kind of want to play sports, and I kind of don't. I'm not sure yet, right? So there are club sports out there for students like that. I know a lot of my kids play like club lacrosse when they leave, right? They don't really want that super competitive lacrosse environment, so they're gonna play club, which is competitive and kind of keeps that sport alive for them. Additionally, I had a student this year who wasn't sure if he wanted to play golf or not, and so kind of that same thing, and had maybe a strong senior year, and so you're looking at those schools like just fit, right? The academic fit, the campus fit, and then that athletic fit. So I think everybody up here has experience in that, and in different ways, So I think, just the fit is really the key there.
And just the last thing I'll add to that is lean on the coaches. Lean on either the high school coaches or the club coaches, because I think they're the people who have the best insight into your child's athletic abilities, right? And they can also help make recommendations like this program may be a good fit for you. I know we all use a tool that it's a book and it's fantastic, and it'll say like colleges with strength in golf, and we can make those types of recommendations, but because we don't know your child's athletic abilities quite as well as obviously the coaches, that is a resource you absolutely should be comfortable leaning on.
When you say contact coaches, you mean the high school coaches?
Yeah, I'm saying your current coaches, whether it's through their club sport or the high school, whoever, wherever they play. Yep. Yes.
And picking up on that, I have friends who have older kids, and we hear horror stories about some kid thinking, oh, I have a bid here, and it doesn't turn out that way. For some reason, there's a, so if a coach approaches one of our students, you would encourage them to share that with you and help you guide them through that process.
And like the athletic side is, it's an honest conversation, right? It's an honest conversation on the athletic side. It's an honest conversation on the academic side, right? And so those two things, kind of go hand in hand.
No, I was just going to say that's a great point. We all kind of tell our students, make sure that you communicate really well with us what's happening on these discussions with your coaches, so at least we're aware of that. And sometimes, in the past, I've had to guide some of my students to be careful of some things that they're saying to the coaches, because, unfortunately, sometimes, things can get really wrong. So that's good.
And there are some coaches that are very upfront with prospective students, and I've heard there are some coaches, my nephew's a rower, and there's a few schools that, this coach is a little squirrely and, sort of leading you on, and then you think you're in and then you don't. And so, I guess,
Yeah, we often talk to kids about that till we get something in writing.
Yeah.
It's not a done deal. It's a business for the colleges. They are building their team. They're not going to care that they hurt your feelings if they somehow did you wrong.
It's a lesson to not put all your eggs in one basket. We're constantly encouraging, even if you are a committed athlete, create a list, right? We don't know that you're not going to break your leg tomorrow. Create a full list of schools that are a great fit, and we take it from there.
Anything else? Thank you, everyone. Of course, you've heard a million times we're here for you, so so please just let us know if you have any other questions. Thank you.